Came 1893, the invasion of our homeland by American armed forces in violation of 5 treaties of peace and amity, perpetual peace and amity between our Hawaiian nation and the United States. Perpetual.
In 1893, the Kingdom of Hawaii was overthrown by a group of white businessmen in coalition with a company of American Marines. 5 years later, the islands were annexed by the United States. Precisely the same procedure, incidentally, that Saddam Hussein employed in absorbing Kuwait. Military attack followed by political annexation.
Wrongs to cover up the original wrong. 1893, as far as we Hawaiians are concerned, is the focal point for the piracy, for the dethronement, you know, the coup d'etat, whatever you want to call it. And to today, the piracy continues.
We were illegally overthrown by American sugar plantation owners. We were never given the opportunity to get our kingdom back. And yet, in the act of Congress, they said they were going to hold trust-ceded crown lands, homestead lands, in trust, all these lands, until such a time as the nation of Hawaii once again is recognized, and then the lands will be turned back over to the Hawaiian people. So it is our belief that because the annexation was illegal, every government issue that's come up since then is perpetuating this illegal action, therefore they are illegal. The county is illegal because the county comes off of federally regulated and state regulated laws that enable the county to act as a county government. Federal laws enable a state to act as a state government. But if we were illegally taken, then all those actions are illegal. Therefore, as Native Hawaiians, we should have the right to our land, irregardless of how these guys feel.
I'd like to suggest that the military and political events of 1893 were only the final battle in a war of attrition that had been waged against a defenseless people for more than a century. The frontline troops were bacteria and viruses, but in their wake came an army of missionaries and entrepreneurs acting as the mop-up crew. First, they broke the back of the culture, then they seized the land, finally they toppled the government. The Hawaiian language that was then banned from official chambers, and the Hawaiian people were pushed to the back of the bus, where they remain second-class citizens to this day. The Hawaiians you see about you now are descended from a relative handful of people who were themselves the survivors of a bacterial assault of genocidal proportions.
Because the official policy of this imposed government was assimilation. What does assimilation mean? That we Kanaka Maoli become non-Kanaka Maoli. We become Americans. And therefore, the Hawaiian problem disappears. No Hawaiian problem. We think and behave like foreigners. Public school system, communication system, constantly promotes our de-Hawaiianization and our westernization, our Americanization. There's a word for that, isn't there? Genocide?
Umau ki e o ka aina I kapono, which is the right of the land, is perpetuated in righteousness. I mean, there's no righteousness here, you know, and it's not being perpetuated. But if you notice, the notice of the vacation, it's a 1.5 acres. When they first came here, when the Attorney General, which one of them was my cousin, they used the family against the families to evict the families. And these families are going to have to realize that they're being used. You know, that's another form of genocide. You know, you can just look at the injustices as it just goes on and on.
I like to put it this way. They couldn't take Vietnam, so they're trying to take the Hawaiians.
1778, at the time of their first contact with the outside world, since arriving in these islands almost 2,000 years earlier, the Hawaiians probably numbered upwards of 800,000 people across the archipelago from Ni'ihau to the Big Island. Their nearly 2 millennia of isolation in these islands had been preceded by many more thousands of years in insular isolation from the mainland of Southeast Asia. One result of this extraordinary seclusion, especially when combined with the winnowing effect of so many long, hard centuries of struggle in venturing across thousands of miles of treacherous ocean currents into repeatedly new island homes, was the establishment in this most geographically removed archipelago on Earth of an exceptionally strong and healthy people. All the historical and all the osteological evidence indicates that the Polynesian people who first settled in Hawaii brought with them no so-called crowd-type infectious diseases of epidemic potential, such as smallpox, yellow fever, typhoid, malaria, measles, pertussis, polio, and so on. They carried with them no serious sexually transmitted diseases such as gonorrhea or syphilis, or such first cousins to syphilis as yaws or pinta. They also were essentially free of such so-called diseases of civilization as hypertension, diabetes, gallstones, renal stones, coronary heart disease, appendicitis, tuberculosis, most forms of cancer, and even obesity. But by the end of the 18th century, when Captain Cook's ship sailed into Waimea Bay on this island, most of the men on board, like most of the adults in their home country, had lived through childhood exposure to many of these diseases, and the majority of them, literally the majority of the men on board, were at that very moment actively carrying cases of syphilis, gonorrhea, or tuberculosis, along with God knows what else. The Hawaiians, with no previous exposure to any of these diseases, were what is called a virgin soil population. Their immune systems were far less able, even than those of newly born European infants, to ward off the biological assault. And it was an assault, a barrage of different diseases, all attacking at once, each one weakening its host's resistance, and thereby preparing even more fertile ground of vulnerability for the next attack. And of course, the Europeans knew that this is precisely what would happen. They had been watching it happen in Central and South and North America for almost 3 centuries. Firestorms of disease routinely destroying 50 to 60% of exposed native populations in the course of a single epidemic. 90 to 95% and sometimes complete extermination of entire peoples in less than a century. And they had seen it before in their travels throughout the Pacific as well. Even long before they reached Hawaii, Captain Cook's own chief surgeon described what they were doing as the worst of all possible human crimes, the all-out destruction of entire age-old societies.
We Kanaka Maoli, in our own homeland, are malalo, at the bottom. The worst health profile of all the ethnic groups in our homeland. Shortest life expectancy, highest rates for the major causes of death. Heart disease, cancer, stroke, accidents, diabetes, highest morbidity rates for the major chronic illnesses. Our young people, highest infant mortality rates still, highest rates for dental caries in our school children, highest suicide rates for young Hawaiian males. Among our pregnant women, highest morbidity rates for infections during pregnancy, complications of pregnancy. But as he has also pointed out, those dismal statistics are not confined to health. We have the highest dropout rates in the school system. Only 45% of us natives acquire high school degrees. Only 18% have any college experience at all. Less than 1% acquire doctoral degrees. So I'm an anomaly. I'm an aberrancy in our own land. So it's frightening business. On the Manoa campus, where Professor Stannard teaches, less than 5% of the students there are Kanaka Maoli. At graduation time, less than 2%. So we're not on the school campuses. Where are we? We're in the jails, as he pointed out. Highest rates for incarceration in our jails. Lowest personal income, lowest household income, lowest family income. Less than 1% of all of the businesses are owned by Native Hawaiians. So it's across the board.
We rank #1 in being in jail and in prison. We rank #1 in being on the homeless list. We're #1 in diseases and illnesses that affect Native Hawaiians more than they affect other races. We're #1 on the welfare rolls in our state. You know, we're #1 on the bottom of almost every list of Western and European cultural achievement. And whereas 200 years ago, we were at the top of the list. We were totally self-sufficient. And life wasn't great in modern day standards, but life was great then for the Hawaiians. They lived in harmony with nature, and they got what they got through community effort, not through an individual effort.
Most foreigners came, and perhaps even now, come here, perhaps some of you in this room, come here, not to live as we Kanaka Maoli, not to speak our language, not to embrace our culture, our religion, not at all. But you come here as Westerners with the Western point of view, economically, capitalistic system, which is based on profit. What does profit mean? One takes more than one gives. That's what profit is. The Western dominant view is individual assertion. If it's at the expense of others, that's competition. Social Darwinism. Survival of the fittest. The weak are the victims. Something wrong with them, blame them.
Trust lands were public lands, and I may be wrong about this, but what I think it was is that the trusted lands were the public lands that were held by the governments, the federal and then the state. Ceded lands or crown lands were lands that belonged to the royal family, which the federal government and then the state took over. And the Hawaiian homelands were the lands given by an act of Congress to the Hawaiian people to settle on through the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. The people that came here and occupied this place were doing it not so much for personal gain, but to make a point. That the point being, if anybody could go on the land, it should be the Hawaiians, and that they should have first choice of what to do with the land. But the state and the federal government has decided that they have the right to say who can and who cannot go on the land. And it's kind of funny that Hawaiians have the hardest time getting control of Hawaiian lands.
My quick claim deed that I put in, it has a stamp by the state that they gave me, that I have the right to put in a quick claim deed for these 11 acres.
And so they stamped it.
Right? And they send it back to me. Now they're telling me they don't recognize it.
If they stamped it, then why don't they recognize it?
They're trying to say that this is Hawaiian Homelands. I'm trying to say that I had the right to put a claim on this land.
So you're
And I got the deed.
okay. And so your position is that they can't evict you until they take you to court to see if that deed's valid or not.
Right. Due process. But they're not giving us due process because they gave us an eviction notice 1 week ago saying that we got to the 11th to move out, else they're coming in and destroying the place.
And what's going to happen when they do come in, if they do come in?
They're going to have to arrest me and take me.
Are you going to resist?
No, because I want my due process in court. I'm going to get it anyway I'm going to get it. Yeah.
How many people are here that feel like you do?
3 families.
3 families. How many people total?
Huh?
How many total people?
6.
6. Came here 5 years ago. Who was in control of this park? Anybody?
No, it was in a limbo. Between the Hawaiian Homes, Aki versus Beamer case.
Ah.
You know, that was on for 13 years. That's why me and my wife came here, because we heard this was in federal court, and it was a class action suit. That the federal government said that the county was illegal for 23 years, not paying rent to the Native Hawaiians.
Have they paid the rent yet?
Well, they finally settled it in '89. That's when we tried to intervene. The judge wouldn't let us intervene. We went to court in Honolulu, federal courts. They say, well, any Native Hawaiian can come and contest this deal, where the Hawaiian Homes is going to give the county 15 more years. And the county would put a 500-gallon tank up there, 500,000-gallon tank up there, water, that they would see the legislature for the money to put it up there. But I don't know why Hawaiian Homes don't go and see the legislature for the money and put it up there. But they like the county to go and see it. That's when it blew my mind. So I tried to talk to the judge and contest the deal. The judge said, no more talking already. Yeah. I said, hey, I read in the paper that I can come and contest the deal. I spent my last time coming from Kauai. He said, well, no more talking. It's all over. Talking is all over. I was mad. You know, they broke all my rights, everything. Then one day, we met a man that knew how to make these deeds. Not make the deeds, but he knew how to go and get the deeds under the 1840 Constitution of a Native Hawaiian. So we went and make a deed. And now I guess they're all upset. So they're going to have to confront it sooner or later. They can arrest me today and forget about it, but tomorrow they're going to get another Hawaiian. And as the years go by, still going to get another Hawaiian. One of these days they're going to have to confront it. You know, start getting boring, you know. The Hawaiians are start to get boring of listening to all this crap every time. You might turn around on them. You know, can push the people so far, and
one of the areas is Hawaiians' right to traditional and customary, ways. It's in the state constitution, Article 12, Section 7. And part of that is the right to subsistence living, really. And when we moved here, it was with the intention to stop the county from getting management again. It had been in the courts a long time, and we were joining that federal case. And so when we moved on, that was always our intention. But now, after living here 5 years, we realized it was an opportunity to experience the Hawaiian culture in a way you can't living in a nuclear family situation or in a suburb. What we had here was a village, an Hawaiian village, and the people were living off the sea and the land. And the children, I read this in a book about old Hawaii, that they could go wherever and the parents not worry. In fact, in old Hawaii, parents might not see their kids for 2 or 3 days because they were down the way with another ohana. So that really was wonderful here with the families and, with all the animals and people always coming, It's definitely an open door policy of aloha. So we've been privileged to have that experience, and I think it's hard to go back to a separate existence that the Western culture puts you in, you know.
It's like we have a whole lot of plastic Hawaiians out there, and it's just too bad because they don't understand how to be Hawaiian. I didn't. And you won't, Hawaiians won't until they start to work the aina with their hands, pulling the weeds, doing whatever it is. I mean, I've been there across on the other side, on the beach side, for almost 5 years. Well, 4.5 years. And I was still caught up in the stressful things of everyday life, you know? Having to go to work. I'm a school bus driver. Of course, we take on another responsibility there. But the stressful things of the world was just getting to me. It's like, I couldn't even see how I could find the time to get across here and start to work the land. But especially now that it's summer, or even before it was summer, I was doing it in between my school bus runs. Just come here, pull weeds for a couple hours, go across there, you do your other daily chores. But yeah, it can work, and Hawaiians won't feel that they're real until they start to work the thing with their hands.
How long have you been living here?
For a year, since last year, June.
What's happening here today?
Well, today I'm knocking down my home because of it being the deadline, the 11th. And I'm trying to get it down before it gets any later. Yeah, and once I'm done, then I'll be able to go across and help these folks with the luau.
Is finding a home a problem?
Yes, it is. It's a big problem because of the rents being so high that I have to have help from the HUD, Section 8. And because they don't have no donations to help us right now, I have to live in my van or go live with my family. So, yeah, right now I'm still homeless. Yeah.
Did you like living here?
Oh, I loved it. It was nice. My kids could just go right in the back and swim, and we had shower, we had sink, stove, everything, you know, that you would have in a home, except for, like, you know, a bedroom here, a bedroom there, like that. But it was very nice. I liked it. I really did. Yeah.
Were you born on Kauai?
I was born on Honolulu, in Kalihi. And then I moved here about 16 years ago, and I've been here ever since then.
This Thursday coming, the Hawaiian Independence Celebration, exactly what it means. You have your 4th of July Independence Celebration, and we have our Hawaiian Independence Celebration. It's a free concert, luau, you know, we're gonna have fish, poi, kalua pig, invite everybody down, you know, to come down, have a good time, you know, have the aloha in their heart, you know. We have some serenaders. What you have here is just a few of them. We're expecting more.
Kamaloti singing, honk, 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 Kamaloti ringing. guitar, we just tuning up the guitar in a vocal chord. Honk, 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 commodity singing. Honk, 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 commodity ringing. Honk, 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 commodity singing. Honk, 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 commodity ringing. Mai o commodity makaao-ao. E o i ka holo ana commodity. Mai o commodity makaao-ao. E o i ka holo ana commodity. Honk, 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 commodity singing. Honk, 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 commodity ringing. Honk, 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 commodity singing. Auga. Honk, 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 commodity ringing.
And they built this lovely house. These are not shiftless, homeless people who do not appreciate the aina. These folks appreciate what our Creator has built and given us here in Hawaii. And because they have built this house and built an ohana, those of you who live in temporary shelter and have been in and out of here, you know that the graces have helped and kokua other people. And I just want to add my mana'o here, that I am so grateful that there are people like those of you who have been in this struggle for Hawaiian rights, and leaders like Michael and like Sandra. I ask you to continue to support them. By supporting them, you support yourself. You support your children and your grandchildren. Because if you do not support them today, who's going to support your mo'opuna tomorrow? Nobody. Nobody. And they're showing us ways, because of all the studying that Sandra particularly has done. She's showing us, they're showing us ways to do it in a right way. And this is a righteous cause. This is right what they're doing. That they must stand fast. You can only push even the tamest of animals into a corner. And then they have to stand and fight. Fight with just submitting. I'm going to submit with them. I pray that there will be those of you who will submit also and show not only the graces, but also to show our people in Hawaii and those of you who are visiting from other lands that you will take this story back to your land, because this is not only a Hawaiian issue, this is a human rights issue.
kia hamai. Again, we are invisible. And yet our case is stronger because we were a nation recognized by all of the dominant powers with treaties that were violated. So the case is overwhelming for our re-empowerment and beginning to control our lives, our health, our future for generations to come after us. So that's the essence of the Hawaiian movement. And as we see it, this is the only way to correct the plight of our people.
The time has come, I suggest, to change this vicious little game. The damage that has been brought by outsiders to the Hawaiian people during the past 2 centuries is staggering. It is, I submit, actually beyond our comprehension. We cannot undo that damage in the sense that we cannot bring back the dead or the unborn children who should have been born. But we can stop adding gross insult to such terrible injury by openly identifying the correct source of those past and ongoing injuries. Until we do this, however, we'll not even begin to heal those who continue to suffer. And if we don't do that, in time we may find ourselves reaping a whirlwind.
So Anahola is a small incident in and of itself, but the issues surrounding it are massive. And that's what, for me, Anahola was, a focusing of the issues, bringing them to light so that the public would know that it's not just a handful of lazy Hawaiians trying to live free off the county or the state. No. That's far from the truth. And maybe one day, next time you interview me, it'll be in the nation of Hawaii. And that would be real nice.
Oh, the spirit called. Ever since the 1920 Act, the white men came and brought his laws and acts. He gave us the mountain and took our prime lands. Yeah, they took all our beaches, eh? And then they said it was for compensation. Uhanika, eh, uhanika, eh, keep the land in Hawaiian hands. Uhanika, eh, uhanika, eh, keep the land in Hawaiian hands. All the city and those hypocrites, the politicians, try to take away the Hawaiian beach. But the Hawaiian, he don't give a damn. Yeah. Because it's time for them to make this stand. Uhanika, eh, uhanika, eh, keep the land in Hawaiian hands. Uhanika, eh, uhanika, eh, keep the land in Hawaiian hands. Hotels here and hotels there are a plastic city. Native Hawaiians I don't see anywhere. The keikis call for uhane to come to to show them they pass where once they belong. Uhanika, eheya, uhanika, eheya. Give me sovereignty, give me sovereignty, give me sovereignty.
I myself feel I have to do something. My wife feels the same way. We have to say something and stand up no matter what. And they have done this to us. Enough. Enough is enough.
Native Hawaiians at Anahola did not get due process of law. The thing no can go inside the bamboo.
Okay, you get it.
Umapo ka inside.
Ah,